Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. It is Championship Friday on Hail Varsity Radio. Courtside at PBA again as the C2 final set to tip off the 4 o'clock session. The second session underway, coming up at 6 over on sister station locally KFOR. Jeff Motz going to have the Class A girls final with Lincoln Southwest and Fremont. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal, great to be with you as it has been just an incredible week of tournament coverage and live shows here at PBA. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. Some of the Southwest students are already making their way into plot out their area. No junior sighting yet. I know you're wondering on that. Elijah, what do you know, man? We're a couple of days away from maybe spring finally springing forward. Not only time-wise, but weather-wise. You feel it all right? You geared up for more basketball?
Yeah, I know the warm weather's coming. My old shoulder injury is starting to give me some trouble, so you can feel the weather changing. I'm looking forward to this championship weekend, though. I mean, what a weekend it is for just basketball as a whole. Some of the most exciting days of the year upcoming with Championship Friday today, Championship Saturday tomorrow from PBA. You got Selection Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Those are days that are dedicated to filling out your bracket, doing all the research you can, and then inevitably getting kicked you know where on Thursday. It's one of the best weeks of basketball we're going to have over the next 7 days.
It is good, and of course you're home for the NCAA tournament to ESPN Lincoln with lots of shenanigans and fun and shenanigans towards the end of the week as opening round gets rocking and rolling. Hooksy and Elijah and Willett Wilson going to be down at our spot Longwells for the NCAA tournament end of next week. So keep all that in mind. We'll let you know what's going on. Today is also a mile marker when it comes to spring football as Nebraska had their first padded practice. Let's set the lineup for you. And give us a follow on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbal. Wish Elijah a happy birthday ahead of time. Sunday is it's shot day for Elijah. Maybe. So that's the to-do list. Email Chris at hailvarsity.com. So spring football mile marker day today with the Big Red putting the pads on, using a contact day, and some feedback to give you with some folks that may have been there. We'll tell you that in a moment. Some questions to ask about the hardest spot to replace for Nebraska football in 2022. We know the names that are working on an NFL career, but the position groups are still in flux. When you look at center and quarterback and cornerback, and then, of course, that nickel spot, and then the interior with D-Boogie and Ben Stilley off to chase their NFL dreams. We'll check in with Jacob Padilla. He's next to me courtside. We are both slamming Mountain Dew. Jacob will give us a thought on the state tournament so far, Nebraska basketball, and some spring football. A Friday edition of Burke's Best Bets with Danny Burke. Pride of Chicago, VSiN Sports Network with Brent Musburger. So Danny will give us some futures on the NCAA tournament, his thoughts on some NBA, and the Russell Wilson impact in Donkeyland. Bill Doleman in hour 2 at 5. We will StreamYard that, Billy D from his couch. And then some thoughts with the McGowans situation from Tom Penders, legendary Hall of Fame NCAA coach, 5 programs to the dance. His take on his dear friend Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K, and that farewell last weekend. And his former student assistant, Chris Beard, now at Texas as Texas tries to make a run. So here's what I have been told about Nebraska football's scrimmage today. So on the offensive line, let's give you a few names that we're going. And we know that this is going to be in flux, right? But from the finding the 5 best healthy guys right now, Ezra Miller and Kevin Williams looked to be getting the nod, at least for this first contact scrimmage this morning. Ethan Piper working at center, Lutowski working at right guard, and then Hunter Anthony working at right tackle. So we're always wondering about, what's the O-line going to look like? That's the biggest puzzle piece that needs to be glued down for Nebraska moving forward. Newsom and Clark were your corners, and then at safety, Noah Pola-Gates and Buford. Giff got the most look at nickel for Nebraska. So there's your back end, there's your offensive line, and so far reports are this. You have Anthony Grant that has flashed, and really the job is to find that 3-back rotation. Grant, you're expecting with his experience to come in and do work out of JUCO, right? It's easier said than done, at least with Nebraska's last 2 forays into JUCO. Now Mills, when healthy, was pretty good when they gave him the ball. So there's where you're at with that running back spot. Grant looking all right. Fedoni's been a pretty decent surprise as well. Not even surprise, but just, pretty good work from him. So that is good to hear with him coming back and just what you want out of that playmaker at tight end. Mickey Joseph's trying to find his top 9, and that continues to be a work in progress. You have extra contact going on right now in front of us on the baseline between GI, Central Catholic, and Humphrey Holy Family, as you've got a player down that now is being helped up. Spring football, though, Elijah, it's so key to get the pads going and find the direction you want to go and feel pretty good. It's really about confidence, but more so this spring's about teaching.
Yeah, and I just know everyone on that team has got to be so antsy to get the pads on and finally get some full contact scrimmage going today. I mean, that's just huge. You don't play football to be playing two-hand touch. Like, especially here at Nebraska with what this coaching staff is trying to build. No one wants to be that team that's, you're wearing shells, you're going two-hand touch, everyone's going 75%. That's no fun. The teaching part's no fun. What's fun is taking that teaching stuff, what you've learned over the past week and a half, almost 2 weeks now, and translating it into a full contact scrimmage to show the team what you got. That was loud.
Absolutely.
So that's what's fun to me, and I'm sure that's what the team probably thinks is fun as well, is getting that opportunity to get out there and pop the pads a little bit. And I'm excited just to see what this team can be come spring, because we've talked so much about the offense, the defense, what the offense can be. Can the defense step up? Can those guys respond? So it starts really with these scrimmages. The teaching period's important, but these scrimmages are where you really set the tone and let the coaches know that you're ready to be on the field.
Well, early reports today from this morning, the offense had a really good day. Dare I say, a tail kicking.
Wow.
A rough practice overall, and that's listen. That's okay. You're not working with who you think may be the guy, but the job is to get people ready to be the guy. As GI Central Catholic just drills a 3 right now in front of us. Nebraska with the Whipple influence, Elijah, going under center quite a bit. So we heard a little bit of that earlier in the week with the fact Whipple's saying, you want to go to the NFL, cool. Do that, but be able to do it in the NFL. Well, Nebraska going under center quite a bit. And from a special team standpoint, the review is this: Nebraska has a really good punter. There was a skirmish, I'm told, and it really fired up the head man, where you had maybe an outside linebacker hit a slot guy, and then hilarity ensued with a fight or a skirmish.
Well, and I'll tell
you, I was not there, but I trust the eyes and ears.
I'll tell you, I went to, back whenever I was playing youth football, we had Patrick Pelini on my team, Bo Pelini's son.
Okay, yeah, how was Patrick?
Good kid. He was a walk-on for 5 years at Notre Dame.
Yep,
and never got in the field all that much, but now he's kind of making himself a podcaster of sorts and then trying out some different ventures. Good kid. Haven't talked to him in a while, but we used to get a chance to go to practice every single year. And I always thought that was the craziest thing, was there was just players just like getting in skirmishes and fighting on a Tuesday, their own teammates. And I remember thinking, like, as like a little 12-year-old, like, wow, I'd never fight one of my teammates. But then now I get older and I go, yeah, that's the competitive spirit you need for football. And I guess I don't know what the practices were like in the Mike Riley years, but you heard there was less physicality during those practices, less emotion. So I don't think it's a bad thing that there's some skirmishes at practice.
Here's this. One of the open practices that Grandpa Riley let us go to, it was towards the end of it, and Riley, he didn't swear, but he got in the middle. Your boy Gerald Foster, just started going after somebody on the defensive line, and it turned into a team-wide throwdown. See, everybody in the media is watching this throwdown, and Riley takes his hat off and screams and slams his hat there was a pulse. There was fury. You could probably see the vein popping from Grandpa Riley's jugular, and he got in the middle of it and broke it up, and he was hot. Riley was ticked. But there's two reasons you fight. A, you're sick of getting cheap-shotted by you slobs on the offensive line, as a defensive line would say. Or B, the defensive linemen are sick of the offensive guys holding. So you've been hitting each other for a week. It's spring. You're, quite frankly, grinding through it and sick of it, even though it's meant to get you better. Or B, you pull the Christian Peter card, and you start a fight, you run some stairs, and you're kicked out of practice, so you got to go kick it. The second half of practice, you have a method to your madness where you just go, I'm good. Don't want to practice anymore. Don't need. We'll talk to Coach McBride about that Monday, about who was good at starting fights and what was their motive. Were they just angry and total BAs, or do they want to kind of go just sit in the cold tub a little earlier than most?
See, the fight I remember was it was a goal line drill, and it was the starters against the scouts, and on the scout team at linebacker was a true freshman, Michael Rose-Ivy.
Sure.
And I'm trying to think who started the fight. I think it was Kenny Bell coming down on a crackback block of sorts.
Kenny was good at that.
That's what I think it was.
Fights, but the crackback block.
I think it was Kenny Bell on a crackback block in the goal line, and there was a 22-man scuffle in the end zone that got broken up pretty quickly. But that's what I think happened.
So did they let it go, or did they jump in immediately? Sometimes the coaches know that, all right, the temperature's rising, it's heating up, and then, all right, the top blows off, and it's time to throw down.
They let it go for 10 to 15 seconds. They just let the scum go. It's just some pushing and shoving and some yelling, and then they broke it up by saying, "There's kids over there. Don't let them see that," and they broke it up.
Kids, turn around. Did Patrick have the same kind of Fargo wood chipper blonde guy, stare as Bo does?
What do you mean?
Just the facial expression. You've seen the movie Fargo.
Yeah.
And one of the two criminals, not Buscemi's character, but the other guy. The guy that always had the cigarette with the blonde hair slicked back. Yeah, that guy in the face looks like Bo.
You think so? I don't think I've ever
totally.
seen it.
You'll have to bring it up and put a side-by-side of Bo and the character in Fargo, the blonde killer. They both look very similar. Does Patrick have the same similar facial expressions?
Now that you mention it, I do see the resemblance, and it's something I'd never seen before, actually.
Yeah. It's the wood chipper guy.
It's all in the nose and the jawline. The nose and the jawline is very similar. Yeah.
Numbers to get in, 466-377-6800-825. 5865. We're here at PBA courtside. The C2 championship going on, just underway in this first quarter. About 2:20 left, and Grand Island Central Catholic up 9-4 over Humphrey Lindsay Holy Family. And coming up, Jacob Padilla will talk some high school ball with us, some spring football, and we'll also get best bets with Danny Burke. He'll join us, get his thoughts on some Big Ten futures, NCAA tournament, who is he hitching his wagon to, And Rutgers, a big win. Big Ten, listen, I know Indiana is surging right now. They're good enough to be a tournament team, so that's good for the Big Ten. Right now, Joey Brackets has 11. Check that, 9. 11's way too many. 9 might be too many, but 9 Big Ten teams in right now. The last team to get in, period, point blank, is Indiana as a 12 seed. I think they have played their way in now in the semis to maybe jump Michigan. They still have Michigan in as an 11 seed somehow as the last team with a bye. I think Michigan's in danger of falling off. Ohio State is still safe, allegedly, as a 6 seed, which I think is way too high. I think Ohio State may drop to a 10. Maybe I'm nuts. They have Sparty as a 7, which I think is crazy as well. But maybe they beat Michigan State tonight. Michigan State at a 7. You have Wisconsin as a 2. The class of the Big Ten. Illinois a 4 seed. We'll see if they hold as a 4 or drop down to a 5. Rutgers looking for a back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances in over 44 years. They're in at an 11 seed. Purdue a 3. And Iowa at a 5. Iowa playing great basketball right now. A timeout. Jacob Padilla next from PBA. It's Hail Varsity Roadshow Friday, Championship Friday.
And we're back.
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Back here, Hail Varsity Roadshow, courtside PBA Championship Friday. And Jacob Padilla with us from HailVarsity.com and magazine. All things college basketball, all things high school basketball. Jacob, every time I see you, buddy, you got a grin on your face. You're all about high school hoops. How was the first session of Championship Friday treated you?
Pretty good. Got that overtime right off the bat here. Got a close game. Got one not so close. So it's we've got it. We've got pretty much everything already in the first session, with 3 more to come.
Yep, and we're gearing up here for Humphrey and Grand Island Central Catholic. Ron Colley able to get a little revenge against Scott in the earlier contest at 2 o'clock. We've got a few friends and some folks we know that are all Lincoln Lutheran, so they're a little sad. And then just from a personal note, we are big Tim Berta fans with Lincoln Southwest. The girls' A game tips off at KFOR tonight at 6. But what have been your impressions? We'll hit Husker hoops, we'll hit a little spring football, but overall, what's this 2022 tournament meant to you?
It's been pretty awesome. We've had some really great storylines. We've had the favorites holding serve in some of them, and in others, we had some upsets right off the bat. I mean, there were 2, 3, 8-over-1 upsets. Already I was there for the Fort Calhoun win. First time at state in 99 years, and they go and knock off the number 1 seed. And then they almost did it again in the semis. That one went down to the wire and lost that one in overtime. So I think this tournament's been pretty awesome here. I've been able to bounce around between PBA and Devaney Center, kind of catching it, trying to see as many different teams as I could. And it's been a great week so far, culminating here with the first session of championships in the book.
I was pretty impressed. I'd seen Gretna earlier in the year, and their effort and fundamentals, and of course what they were able to do, and they hung in as long as they could in the semis, but just wasn't to be against Millard North. Now it's the trilogy coming up tomorrow night with Millard North and Bellevue West. And Green is such a difference maker, but he's such an unselfish superstar.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at his stat line, and he basically impacts the game in every single way possible. A double-double guy, leading the state in blocks, couple of steals a game, shooting well from 3, obviously scoring at a high rate inside the arc. So he just basically does everything you want to ask him to do. Shares the ball with his teammates as well. He's got some guys that are capable of scoring but when you need him to step up, he'll go and do that as well. So he's been so much fun to watch this season. Even in their losses, he almost single-handedly dragged them back into a couple of those games this year against Bellevue West and in the Metro tournament, where against Westside, where it looked like they were dead, and he would not let them lose easily. So He's had a phenomenal season, and I'm glad he's getting a chance here to now at this stage as the lead guy get a chance to go out and win a title after kind of standing in the shadows behind the other guys the last couple of years.
What do you foresee tomorrow night at 6 here at PBA? What are a couple of keys for Bell West and for Millard North?
Yeah, should be a great matchup. You talk about Jason Green. Bellevue West, William Kyle III has not missed a shot this state tournament. He's got 28 points on 14 of 14 shooting. I don't think he's turned the ball over. 15 boards in 2 games. Such a good defensive presence. So seeing Green and Kyle kind of go back and forth, guarding each other, being the weak side help defender, helping other guys out. That's going to be a fun battle inside. And then the guard matchup as well. David Harmon and Josiah Dotzler. Both guys that can take over a game in different ways, but they can both really put up 20-30 on you. Really good at getting to the rim. So it might come down to a combination of shot selection and guys hitting shots. If they're making good decisions on between the drive and kick versus drive and finish, if they're taking the right threes, whichever side kind of plays into that well, kind of keeps their composure, I think we'll have a chance to win the game.
I thought Millard North got a lot of confidence early against Gretna, and they hit some big threes early.
Yeah, 4 of their first 6, and that with Gretna with that zone and the way they were guarding you, it was going to be there. And right away, they knocked down 4 of them, 4 of their first 6. Like I said, they didn't make another one the rest of the game, but they already had the lead at that point. The damage was done, and then they were able to play with the lead and kind of dictate the action after that. So that is the one big weakness for this Millard North team is they're shooting 30-ish, maybe not even that % from 3 on the season. They've got guys that are capable of hitting shots, but they haven't done it consistently. So Bellevue West, on the other hand, has a handful of guys that have shot a pretty good percentage this season. So that could ultimately be a decision maker. But here at PBA, you never know with the sight lines and everything. To expect a great 3-point shooting game, you don't want to go in there banking on that.
Jacob Padilla with us courtside PBA Championship Friday Roadshow with Hale Varsity Radio. Jacob, let's talk Nebraska basketball. A tough finish against Northwestern. It was there, then it wasn't. Kind of a microcosm. Timeline for you on changes. Does it come after the NCAA tournament? Is it something that you think happens mid-tournament? What's your feel here with where Fred goes from a change standpoint?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of how he plays it. Obviously, the Final Four is basically the biggest coaching convention every year. Like, everybody goes there, they all hang out, they all rub elbows. That's a huge part of the hiring process every year, is everybody getting together, talking to different guys and that. So we'd probably, before we get to the Final Four, hear about any departures from the staff, because then I think that would play a big part into Fred going out and finding the replacements. But, I mean, season just got over. I think they got to have time to sit down, probably have their exit interviews, kind of look back on what happened this season, and then go forward and make the decisions.
Jacob, what about player departures? I mean, we saw this team start to come together at the end of the season this year, and we've talked so much this year about just problems with the way this roster was made up. But now, after we saw them kind of hit their stride a little bit at the end of the season, are you still feeling the same way that there needs to be an overhaul of this roster this offseason?
I think, again, with the team, with the class already signed, and heck, one of those players is already on campus, I don't think it's going to be an overhaul. You've got a guy like C.J. Welcher, a guy like Wilhelm Breidenbach should be back. So some of these young guys that played roles this year that you expect to come back. I think Derek Walker is kind of a big question mark. Like, that's the most likely of the guys that can come back, I think, to come back. So he's one of those ones where you're going to have that conversation and figure out what his plan is and then move forward from there. But with Breidenbach, with Wilcher, you've got a nice little kind of combo there. You've got a guy coming in from JUCO ranks, big guy, Blaze Keita, to kind of give you some more size. So that's kind of what you're building around. And then I think more so than an overhaul, I think they're going to have to go out and land a key piece, probably a point guard, a guy that can go out and create offense for you, because I still think a lot of those guys coming back and the guys they're adding are more complementary pieces. You're going to have to replace what you're getting from the good stretches of Alonzo Virginia. We saw down the stretch how important his play was to this team. And when he was on, they were winning games. So if they can find the right fit in terms of a transfer point guard to lessen some of that pressure on a guy like Ramel Lloyd to come in and have to be the starting point guard and play 30 minutes a game right off the bat, I think that is the biggest order of business in this offseason once they figure out the staff portion of it.
Were you encouraged, or did you ever question Fred's system? Was it more about the execution? Did the finish show you anything?
Yeah, no, I never really questioned Fred too much in terms of X's and O's and what he's trying to get his guys to do. It's just a matter, was it clicking? Were the players understanding the way he was teaching it to them? And were they capable of doing what they needed to do for it to work? But the system itself, Fred knows X's and O's. It's kind of some of the other things I think that has led to some of their struggles recently. So we saw when things were clicking what it looked like. And they were playing the way that he wants them to play in those wins. And even in that Northwestern game, until things got difficult and then they kind of fell back into their old traps. But the fact that they were finally able to get it, I think, shows that, hey, this is what it's capable of when you do it right and you've got the right guys in the key spots.
So how are you wagering with funny money? 0 for 2 on the McGowans, 1 for 2, or 2-0?
I think probably 0 for 2. I think both guys, they got their chance to come and play together. Obviously, it was shorter than they were both hoping for, but they were able to kind of check that off their bucket list. And I think both are probably ready to move on to the next stage. I haven't asked anyone. It's just kind of me speculating or whatever. But, I'd be surprised. I think with Bryce's recent play and also once they kind of dive into the season and see, like, all right, what he was doing, what was the reason for some of the inefficiency, and you consider the difficult circumstances he's playing in, I think he'll be a solid, have a chance to be maybe in that 20 to 30 range. So not a lottery pick, but good enough to get in with a good team and have a chance to develop next year.
I think late first, early second. That's kind of the projections we've both seen. Jacob Padilla with us here. Jacob, just a couple of minutes, and thanks for joining us courtside. Spring football, that mile marker met. At least the first padded practice scrimmage today. I had a different looking O-line from what I have heard, but that's to be expected with the injuries. Position group you're kind of focused in on. Is it the line? Is it the secondary? What are you interested to see maybe kind of come together here come early April?
It's probably more secondary for me, just knowing the key pieces that are still going to be out all spring for the offensive line, because you'd feel good about a 5 that you make it through the spring with, and then you get those guys back, and suddenly it's probably going to look a little bit different. So it's hard to, I think, will be hard for them to flesh out. They're going to be working more towards, all right, technique and understanding the new coaching and all that stuff, more so than establishing the 5 and depth chart and all that kind of thing for the offensive line. And that's really important, obviously. I just don't know that it'll be what it looks like at the end. Secondary, though, I think you'll have a lot of key pieces in the mix there, and those jobs are up for grabs. And you know the way that Travis Fisher coaches his group, the standard he holds them to, and all that sort of thing. Obviously, you've got Quentin Newsome coming back. You feel pretty good about him winning one of those jobs, but you've got some newcomers. You've got some guys that have been in the program for a few years, and seeing kind of those guys go at it for those spots. A guy like Marquise Buford, who it looks like is focusing more at safety now with the guys they lost at that spot. He's a guy that's played both throughout his time in Nebraska already. He's another intriguing name in there, plus the newcomers. So I think secondary is probably one that is most intriguing to me right now.
Well, got some guys that are there and some guys that are waiting to flash. They've been in the program, and Noah Pola Gates, Newsome and Clark. You got Hill that's done pretty well by reports, or at least some innuendo at that other corner spot. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Jacob, always love to hang out with you here at PBA with state tournament action. A quick timeout. Thanks for your time today.
All right. Enjoyed it.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, Hail Varsity Radio, PBA, courtside for Championship Friday. It's time for Burke's Best Bets. Danny Burke with us from VSiN Sports Network at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter. Pride of Chicago, Championship Sunday looms with Selection Sunday. How are you?
I'm good, Schmidt. I'm getting excited. Obviously, like I've said before, it takes me a little bit to get fully invested in college hoops, but we're right in the thick of it. So, yeah, absolutely pumped for it. And, even though Nebraska blew the lead, got our hopes up a little bit, at least they still covered against Northwestern. So, in my business, that's all that matters.
Covering is key. Did you get it at 4 or 4.5?
Exactly, yeah. I got the 4 in the hook. So, it came through for us. I was still obviously disappointed they blew it because that's 3 losses against Northwestern, and people I know that went to the university always like to give me crap. So I need the boys to get one when it comes to football season.
Well, a couple of ball games tonight, the semis for the Big Ten. You have Michigan State and Wisconsin. Wisconsin -3. Sparty has really struggled. They've got the win over Purdue not long ago to kind of shake themselves out of that funk, but they've been in a bit of a tailspin. Penn State, a wow comeback against Ohio State. They're getting 10 and the hook against Purdue. Any of these trip your trigger?
The Michigan State and Wisconsin game is moving the needle for me as opposed to the other one. So this game opened up like 2, and last I checked, Schmidt, it went up to 3 in favor of Wisconsin, and I don't disagree with that movement whatsoever. I'm not necessarily the biggest Badger basketball fan per se, but in this game, I'm trending toward that being the side I like. Look, Tom Izzo in March is always the solid side to want to bet on, and I get it. They still want to garner some more momentum as they head toward the big dance. But, Wisconsin, to me, that game against Nebraska, I mean, they were already celebrating getting to share the Big Ten title. They were getting cocky before they were even playing Nebraska. And them being a double-digit favorite was, despite how bad Nebraska had been, the momentum they built seemed like that line was too high. Now, obviously, them losing on their home floor and then impacting the seeding, I feel like they're going to be ticked off coming into this game against Michigan State. They're not going to be lackadaisical about it like they were against the Huskers. And I know that Davis got banged up, but it looks like he's going to go. And aside from that, statistically, Michigan State actually matches up pretty well. But at this point, when you get to these tournaments and conference play, Schmitty, I think you got to go with the best player in the conference, the more experienced team, and the team that has a little bit more of that, hey, we got an edge on our shoulder because of that loss to Nebraska type of angle. So I'd probably lay a little bit more and go with the Badgers on the money line.
Danny Burke is with us, Pride of Chicago. Burke's Best Bets live here at PBA Championship Friday with Hail Varsity Radio. Iowa has an incredible player, as does Wisconsin. Illinois got shaken a little bit, upset by Illinois. Illinois, I think, has played their way into maybe off of the last team in to maybe one of the 4 teams that get the last bye. I think Michigan's up in the air. People still seem to love what has been going on with Ohio State. I know, didn't they beat Duke earlier in the year? That's carrying a lot of weight. Ohio State's not been good either. Danny, I know that the Selection Sunday's coming up this weekend. That said, is there a team you feel great about going into even before the matchups are set?
Yeah, Schmitty, I mean, it seems like, and it seems like this every year, I guess. Maybe not every year, but a majority of the seasons, it's like, oh, it's top-heavy. You have confidence in these top 5 or 6 teams, right? And Gonzaga obviously is always up there, but I feel like it's just one of those teams I can't trust until it actually comes through to fruition. And I'm kind of with you on the SEC. I'm not too bullish on them, so I'm not really too high in a team coming out of the SEC. Big Ten, I wanted to say Illinois, but based on the performance we saw today, it kind of knocks down some confidence. Again, they had a really rough outing, and they could absolutely put it together during the tournament. I don't know if they have enough to have what it takes really to win the whole thing. Final Four, sure. Beyond that, I'm not really certain. Kansas was a team based on the players they had that I actually took a flyer on earlier this season. So from that personal standpoint, I'll be sweating them out throughout the tournament. They've kind of had some moments where they haven't looked too good, so that worries me a little bit. I know Arizona's a really popular team to look forward to. The last time I trusted Arizona was that DeAndre Ayton team. I had them going the whole way, and then inevitably they lost in the first round. So a little bit of bad blood between me and the Wildcats. But no, truthfully, I do think Arizona could be a top contender as well. But honestly, Schmitty, at this point in the year, if you're looking for futures bets, unless it's like a middle-of-the-pack to lower-tier type of team, I really don't see too much value unless you're all gung-ho about one squad, because otherwise I think I'm just going to take it on a game-to-game basis, right? And I honestly think that's the best way to go about it once you get to this point, because what it comes down to with the futures is value, and all the value in most of these teams is already gone at this point because you already understand what kind of squads they have. It doesn't mean a lower-tier team can't go on a run and you can cash on it, but it's a lot harder to pick out which of those teams you want to bet on. So me personally, I have a few teams that obviously I'm pretty high on. Doesn't mean I'm going to bet them in terms of the futures, but I'll definitely be looking to bet them more so on a game-to-game basis. And some of those squads, like I talked about, being in Arizona, being in Illinois, despite what happened to them. Illinois could be a buy-low team now, ATS-wise, because of how they got eliminated early. So those are some squads I'm looking out for.
Danny, a few minutes left here. I want to go to some NBA. We had a big performance last night from the Brooklyn Nets as they took down the 76ers, and now the 76ers and the Nets both got the same odds to win the NBA East. And we also have the Milwaukee Bucks at a slight favorite. All of these teams still plus money, though. Is there any team you like? Are you buying on the Nets now that they took down the 76ers in such convincing fashion last night?
Yeah, I don't really want to overreact too much to that win, albeit it was a huge one, and I think that has some ramifications in terms of the MVP award because you can't lose that game with all the narratives at home if you're Joel Embiid. But aside from that, I have a ticket plus 850 on the Sixers to win the Eastern Conference, so I'll definitely be rooting for that. But if I have to pick a team aside from the Sixers, look, I'm just not too sold on the Nets. I mean, you got to get the mandate lifted for Kyrie Irving for me to want to strongly consider them. And it's not that I think it was an unsuccessful trade in the long run, but for this season, I think it is. To assume Ben Simmons and all these parts can put it together and link up very successfully throughout a cruel and really just tough Eastern Conference in those series, that's a tough ask. Next year, sure, maybe, but this year, I'm not fully in on the Nets. I take the Sixers over them. And the next team, it's got to be the Bucks again for me. Who the hell is stopping Giannis? This team, if they can stay healthy, they got enough role production from their bench. Giannis, again, is unguardable. And then you got to worry about Chris Middleton in the pick-and-roll game. I like the Bucks. I like the Sixers. And then I'd probably go Heat over the Nets as well. But I'm sweating out the Sixers right now. Behind that, I would have to go Milwaukee.
Danny, to wrap, what is Russell Wilson to Denver do for you with Denver in the AFC West? Are they, I don't want to say a favorite, but are they more of a team you could fall in love with here? They've been missing a quarterback for quite a few years.
The short answer is no, Schmidt. Does it move the needle in terms of the betting odds? Sure, naturally the Broncos are going to become more of a short shot, but I still have the Broncos and Russell Wilson is the third-best quarterback/team in the AFC West. Justin Herbert and the Chargers in a lot better position, in my opinion. If I had to build a team around one of those quarterbacks, I'm taking Herbert over Wilson. And obviously Mahomes and the Chiefs are over both of those guys. So to me, yeah, it's cool, it's exciting, but guess what? Now you're in the toughest division in football, in the tougher conference in the NFL, and you're the third-best team in that division. So it's cool, good for you, Denver. It's not going to be enough to get you a championship.
Pride of Chicago, have a good weekend, brother.
Hey, thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your game, Schmidt.
And we're back
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio listen?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Second half about to start here in the C2 final. You have Humphrey, Lindsay Holy family trailing Grand Island Central Catholic 18-15. And then tonight you have the girls A final on KFOR locally. Jeff Motz will have that call. And the Fighting Tim Berdas of Lincoln Southwest. Silverhawks trying to cut down the Nets for a second time in 5 years. Runners up, I believe, in 2019. Fremont, man, they're hungry for a title. So tune into Motzi tonight for that on KFOR. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal, courtside at PBA, a roadshow Friday. Bill Doleman coming up in hour 2. And then some thoughts on Bryce McGowens, Coach K's last dance, and what's happening at Texas with Chris Beard, as in the run that the Bevo can make. And I know not many of us are smiling about that, but Coach Penders, good perspective on the NCAA tournament. He'll be with us in hour 2. 466-37 764-663-776 800-825-5865. So props to Will Compton, of course, busting with the boys, making the roadie to Lincoln the last 3 days for some of their pod work that'll drop next week during spring break. We gave you a little look-see into just how the first padded scrimmage went today, this morning for Nebraska, and the sounds of it from people we hear from, good for the offense today, but not a happy Coach Frost, as guys no doubt we're ready for spring break. We'll talk some spring break with Bill Doleman. So back to Will Compton. Will made the right call, Elijah, and he went to Virginia's for breakfast today.
Yeah, great choice. Just a great choice to go to Virginia's. I mean, sitting right here next to us, you probably could have stopped by and said, "Hey, can I get an interview?" But I'll forgive you. Go down at PBA today.
No, that's fine. But no, I mean, that's and we got to credit Searles. We can shout into the microphone till we're blue in the face, but it takes a guy like Searles to say, it's where it's got to go. That's what's got to happen. Listen to an offensive lineman. So there we go.
Did you see the picture today of them, Will Compton, Taylor Lewan, trying to do the Hunter Anthony splits down on the field?
No, I did not.
Because they made fun of him whenever that picture came out.
I know. I did not wander upon that. I do know that I think they rocked the last night. I think they locked the old single barrel. So they had a plate of meat. Motz is here. He's giving me the eye about wanting the equipment. I got an hour left, cowboy, as we're ready to go. So get the podcast figured out. Do so. Give us a review, good, bad, ugly. We'll take the feedback for sure. Hail Varsity Radio, Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play is where you can find us. And please do that. Take us with. And hour 2 on the way. We'll be streaming live on ESPN Lincoln Facebook and Twitter with Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbal, the birthday boy. Send him a birthday wish or GIF, something nice. Hour 2 next. Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. It's hour 2. We're live here at PBA courtside. Those boos aren't for Bill Doleman. It's the Grand Island Central Catholic fan base that is pissed out of their mind about a couple of travel calls. Pride of Fairbury, how are you, sir?
I miss the state tournament days, man. So much fun when all the one-ways become two-ways in Lincoln and people get all provincial about their small-town teams, and I think it's a big deal to come to Lincoln. That's a fun time of year to be there.
It is outstanding. Championship Friday, boys and girls tournaments combined because of Big Ten wrestling last weekend. So 96 teams. Hold on a minute. 96 games, 48 teams. My math major was anything but. And no games from me tonight. Jeff Moat's going to have the girls' championship game tonight over on KFOR. And I'll have the boys' game over on KFOR tomorrow night. But a lot of coverage on ESPN Lincoln and KFOR, and we've loved covering the area teams and some of the Metro teams. So it is an incredible time, and the lower bowl has been just jam-packed, kind of the midsection suite area, getting some usage as well. And spring break is also knocking on the door. How's your week been? Have folks sworn off weed to be able to afford gas in Denver?
Well, when they're on weed, they don't go anywhere, or at least they're not supposed to anyway. So I guess people are saving money that way, just going and staying at home eating Cheetos and getting high. Kind of the way it is out here. I guess they kind of came out of their stupor a little bit this week with the Russell Wilson news, which stunned me because the headlines have been this blockbuster deal and the shockwaves of the NFL and out of the blue, it's like people have been talking about Russell Wilson going to Denver for 2 years now. Remember, like 2 years ago, it was Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, if he was going to get released by Dallas, and Aaron Rodgers. And so, like, Russell Wilson has been on people's lips for 2 years, in addition to the smoke pipe. But this isn't like Peyton Manning, but people are making it out to be like, oh, my God, Peyton Manning out of the blue. It's like, you've been talking about it for 2 years that you're going to go get Russell Wilson if you can't get Aaron Rodgers. So apparently he's coming, and they got rid of Drew Lock and his hip-hop and all the other cool things that Drew Lock did except play quarterback well. But, that's probably the only thing that's gotten people out of the purple haze is the orange and blue.
Elijah's been rejoicing since this went down. Tuesday was supposed to be Aaron Rodgers Day. It turned into Russell Wilson Day. Deshaun Watson, according to TMZ, got some great news today. No criminal charges going to be filed on him.
And he went and relaxed with a nice massage to get a break.
Let's pray no. He's going to have to switch to male masseuses, I think. So let's dive into Nebraska football. A turnover now and driving to the rim and an and one for Lindsay Holy family. Humphrey Lindsay Holy family, and the place has erupted as they have tied things up with a chance to take the lead. So spring football, the first contact practice today. I mean, it was a scrimmage. Mile marker 1 is what we're calling it. And per some little birdies, the offense had their way against the defense today. 2, you have things still getting worked out at running back. You had a new-look offensive line, which isn't surprising, but you had a ticked-off Scott Frost. Again, I was not there, but I trust who told me and who was there. A, that he wasn't happy with a skirmish that went down, and B, defensively, it wasn't real clean, and then offensively it wasn't real clean. But that's just going to be how it goes. I think at this point, Mike Riley, the mullet, has chimed in from Chicago and is praising the average Joes. We'll do that reunion, that podcast someday soon this summer from a patio near you. But Bill, overall, what do you want to get out of a first week in Lincoln if you're Scott Frost?
Feistiness. If they're getting at it a little bit, I don't have a problem with it, and I'm sure Scott may have on the outside, and maybe when they got back to the coach's office, they were like, man, they got after it pretty good out there, didn't they? You want guys to be a little feisty and care and get after each other, and I'm sure that they were slow walking the break to break it all up. You just never know unless it got out of hand. But I don't ever think that that's necessarily a bad thing. And it kind of galvanizes your entire group on the defense and your group on the offense, and pretty good chance it was guys along the offensive and defensive lines that were mixing it up just a little bit. Boys are going to be boys, I guess, and if they care that much about their jobs and what they're trying to do, then those things are going to happen.
Bill Doleman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, live at PBA courtside as Championship Friday ongoing here, winding down third quarter. Bill, a take on who is king at starting or finishing fights during your time with the Tom Osborne Show?
I don't remember ever getting a chance to see any of those things, but you would hear about them, as the day went on. I'm sure that the Peter brothers probably brought a lot of New Jersey with them to Lincoln. And I got to believe that they were mixing it up quite a bit. I don't remember who some of those instigators on the offensive line might have been, but I'm sure if there was something going on, Jason or Christian was probably right there in the mix of it.
I had heard that, one, you can start a fight out of frustration or to shake things up, or two, it might be genius, like Christian starting a fight, running some stairs, and then getting kicked out of practice. Good. I don't have to jack around practice the second half.
Yeah, that could have been, or, they might have been doing it to toughen some guys up on the other side of the ball. Now, the pipeline, those guys didn't need a whole lot of, toughening up, let's face it. But you never know. It might have been something where you got a first-team defender going, if we're going to be any good, this guy on the second or third team of the offensive line's got to be able to fight. So let's see if he can fight, And so maybe there was a little strategy there. But I'm sure that there were some pretty good dance-off, shall we say, back in the day.
Bill Doleman's with us. It is a Friday at 5 with the Pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports, as we're courtside here at PBA. Bill, to look at some of the spots here, in your opinion, what's the hardest spot to replace if you're Nebraska? Is it going to be center? Is it going to be quarterback? Is it going to be who's stepping in for Cam Taylor-Britt? Is it JoJo's spot? Or is it those interior guys? Yeah, you have a guy in Ty Robinson, but you lost Damian Daniels. Damian Daniels. And then Stilling, a 6-year super senior that really, really played well his senior season when it came to run stoppage and also quarterback hurries.
Well, part of that comes down to the coaching staff. I think losing Tuioti perhaps on that defensive line, I think that hurts a little bit because I thought the D-line played pretty well last year with him, and now he's gone. And Dawson, I guess, is taking over all of that. In thinking about groupings, you got to look at the secondary because you're losing 3 guys that started like 80 games, and Britt and Dismuke and Deontay Williams. So that's going to be challenging, but that's Travis Fisher's group. So Travis Fisher's coming back, and all those guys that are in his room are guys that he's recruited. So they ought to be quickly on the same page. So I'm not as concerned with that, nor am I that concerned necessarily with the defensive line. I think, and I'm not really concerned about quarterback. Adrian Martinez, great guy, good leader, all of those things, great character guy. It was kind of time to break up. And I think that they've done a lot to upgrade that room in terms of depth. And I'm a big Logan Smothers guy because of his loyalty to Nebraska, and that seems to have been a topic over the past couple of days. And I don't think he's going to give up his opportunity without a fight, and so I respect that. But it looks like Thompson is kind of the guy for right now, and maybe Purdy. But I think about the loss of Austin Allen. And I know you've got Vokalek and maybe Fedoni's going to be healthy and Hickman and some guys who've been around. But Austin Allen was the go-to and the fail-safe and the default and just a great athlete and a great tight end. And I'm seeing a 5th-round projection. I'm thinking this guy's got to be a 2- or 3-round pick. 6'8", 265, and runs like he does and has sure hands. I think that guy is going to be a great pro. And I think just him alone on the offense – it's going to be critical, but you also have new quarterbacks. So, he was kind of Adrian's security blanket. Casey and all the other guys can find their own. And maybe it's moving Manning to the slot. Maybe that's the guy. But I think Austin Allen and JoJo Doleman's personality, his work ethic, his passion, his fight, he's going to be another guy that's going to play in the NFL just because of the way he plays the game. And, I read, is it Kovalek? I forget how to pronounce the name. But, he said, I want to be like a JoJo Doleman. And so he wants to be like a JoJo Doleman. Well, that means JoJo Doleman's impact on defense, even though it was a different position, inside linebacker and nickel, the way he played the game had an impact in addition to what he did on the field. So those are 2 guys that I think Nebraska has to find the replacements for. But yeah, groupings, that offensive line, Donovan Raiola's job is find a new center and coach him up. Is that moving a guard to center? Whatever. That's his job. And I'm a big believer in that hire. I don't think that's a question mark at all. But find the guy, coach him up. Travis Fisher, find your guys, coach him up. Dawson, find those guys to replace Stilley and Daniels, coach them up. But finding two special players at tight end and at that nickel or the all over the field kind of guy, that to me is the critical thing. And a lot of that's about attitude.
Well, you mentioned the JoJo spot, that nickel, that linebacker, the coverage, the tight end guy. I mean, those are two of the mismatches you see in football all the time. You go get your mismatch with your tight end, your flex guy, and defensively, if you've got that hybrid safety linebacker, that's who you stick on the mismatch at tight end or slot, and also bring him off the edge to go get some pressure. Those are your Swiss Army knife spots in college football and in the NFL. Bill, a couple 4 minutes here left with this segment. So your boy Henry Rollins is coming to town not long after the spring game. So we're just going to extend your stay, spring game, and then Henry Rollins show. Start ripping sleeves off your T-shirts now, so you feel at home at the show. I kind of kid. But in all seriousness, we need a power ranking of the Bill Doleman spring break experience from the late 80s, my friend, since it is spring break.
So you want me to save my Henry Rollins story for when Hank comes to town and my drumstick to retell that story, which I happily will do so and relive the legend of Ben Boyle. But, my spring break career was somewhat checkered early, but I peaked late, which is, what you want to do. I went out strong. A couple of my spring break destinations as a proud member of the Theta Xi fraternity at 1535 R Street. Guys just sitting around one time going, well, I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? Well, my sister lives up in New Ulm, Minnesota. We can go up there. They got a brewery. So we went up, a bunch of us piled in a car, I think one night, and went to New Ulm, Minnesota, where they have Ulmer beer. And we went up there and did go to a hockey game. That was one. Another time we loaded up the truck and went to Cheyenne, Wyoming, because another guy, my sister lives in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So we drove all night to Cheyenne. And I think we actually pulled an all-nighter and drove to Steamboat Springs and went skiing because another guy, his mom was like a state senator in South Dakota, but they had a cabin in Steamboat. So it was just always kind of these spur-of-the-moment things. But I finished strong. Spring break, 1989, Daytona Beach, right around the time that MTV was making spring break the thing to do. And so I capped it off strong with my good buddy Boozer Bob Frank. We loaded up a bus. By then we could handle our alcohol a little bit better. And that bus all the way down to Daytona Beach, it was a good time.
Your time in Daytona was much better than mine. We will just leave it. We will leave my Daytona story alone, just because I have to. It's court ordered.
Well, it was at Daytona Beach on a thing called a payphone. If people ever remember what those were, that I called Nebraska TV after having done an audition tape a week or two before. That I made the call from a payphone after an all-nighter and quarter draws or nickel draws, and which I still have the cup in my cabinet, by the way. That I called Nebraska TV and asked if I was going to be able to work the Nebraska-Oklahoma baseball game on April 9th, 1989. So it was Daytona holds a special place in my heart for a number of reasons, but it was that payphone call to Jim Carmichael and Steve Alvis when they said, "Yeah, we'll let you do the first 3 innings, but if you suck, we're going to let Adrian Fiala finish out the game."
And
that's where I got my first job offer.
The rest is history. You were there for MTV, and I was there for Jules Asner and E! Entertainment. We'll leave it at that. Billy D, we'll catch up here in a couple of weeks. I'm off to Zona next week, but thanks for a few minutes today.
Absolutely, and all the best to the Salt Dogs and Marty Scott, who passed away this week. God bless him and the whole organization. I know people are sad over there, but he gave us a great couple of memories, and I wish his family well.
Bill, thank you, bud. We'll check in with Tom Penders next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. We're courtside here at Pinnacle Bank Arena. Hall of Fame coach, and, of course, 5 programs to the NCAA tournament. Tom Penders back with us. At Tom Penders on Twitter is where you find him. Coach, got to love this time of year. The madness is real. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chris, and this is the time of year for me and all basketball fans. You know, you talk about March from day one. I have some former assistants that have become head coaches, and most notably Chris Beard at the University of Texas, who was my manager and then his student assistant in his last year at Texas. So we talk a lot about things, and something I always emphasize to my teams, once I knew that we had enough talent, I'd always talk about March, first day of practice and every single day of practice. So when the day comes, they're ready for it. They expect to be there, knowing that I expected to be there. So there's some psychology involved in March.
Tom Penders with us here on Hail Varsity, courtside at PBA. So I want to get your take on Nebraska. You know, Fred got a 4th year from athletic director Trev Alberts. And, I mean, Fred has had 3 straight 20-loss seasons. He has a 5-star that's projected to be in the first round of the NBA draft. Bryce McGowens, really good, but this chemistry hasn't matched. But I'm just wondering, what's your reaction to Fred's struggle? We all like Fred, and we're just kind of shocked it hasn't gone better based on his history. What's your read and look at Nebraska with Fred being here? I know we talked when he got hired. We were kind of all smiling about it, but, man, it's been a rough 3 years.
Yeah, I hope the athletic director considered this. You know, in some cases, just look at Mike Krzyzewski's first 3 years at Duke. You know, how he got his 4th year, he would never get it today because his record was like 20 games under 500 at Duke, where they never experienced that since the 1940s when Mike first went there. He was a young guy. I was coaching at Fordham when he took the job down there, and I said, how in the world is he going to be ready for this job? And I think with Fred Hoiberg, you know, the guy can coach. It's all about getting the right players. And certainly, you know, he hit a home run with the McGowans brothers. You know, Bryce is a heck of a prospect. He reminds me a lot of a kid I had at Texas who should have been, except there was a great divide when the Big 12 first started in 1996-97. Reggie Freeman was the best player. In other words, without Reggie Freeman, we don't even make the CBI tournament. He took us to a Sweet 16 in his senior year, averaged 23 points per game, and we won the Big 12 South. If you remember going back when it first began in the Big 12, we had a Northern Division, which was practically the old Big 8, and we had the Southern Division where we had all the Texas schools plus Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. You had Eddie Sutton, Kelvin Sampson at those 2 schools. You had Baylor, which was on the uptick already. They had a kid named Dana Skinner at center, NBA player. I think he led the country in block shots, and he was about 6'10", a great athlete. Baylor was really good, and Texas A&M was on the uptick at that time, although, you know, they weren't in the league for very long. As you know, the league was divided, stayed divided. The old Big 8 guard didn't think the Southwest Conference schools could compete with them, and they were very open about it. You know, Norm Stewart and Eddie Sutton in particular. But Kelvin Sampson didn't say a word because we played Oklahoma every year. And he and I, we became very close friends. And he knew what we were fighting, you know, being from the old Southwest Conference going into this Big 8. There was a lot of arrogance on the northern side of the league. Like, you're not going to be able to compete with us. Well, we had established ourselves as a regular top 25 team that when we got a chance to play in the tournament, we didn't lose in the opening round very often in my career. We usually got by the first round at least. And, we established ourselves. We knew how good we were. We played one of the toughest schedules in the country back then. We didn't have any bye games back in 1998. None. Now Texas has about 9 of them. And every school in the Big 12 and the Big 10, they fatten their record up, or they try to. And all I would say with Fred Hoiberg is he should have bought himself a few more wins in November when the season basically began for everybody. He didn't schedule smart enough. And then the Big Ten is a great league. They didn't have the ESPN games every night like the Big 12 has and the SEC has on their own network. The Big Ten, if you don't have the Big Ten network, you don't see a lot of Big Ten games. So that has a lot to do with national respect. The Big Ten still is looked at as a football conference. And it's not true. The basketball is great, but they got to get on television more. Nebraska didn't have any real national games outside the BTN, and that's what it takes. You need to get on the network games. You need to get on CBS. Unfortunately, in today's world with COVID and the transfer portal, it's a lot tougher to go from where Nebraska is now, up to that 20-win level. But it looks like they know how to recruit when you get a kid like Bryce McGowens as a freshman. And again, he's special. But if he goes to the NBA, unless he's a lottery pick, he'd be a heck of a lot better off coming back to Nebraska, playing for a guy who was an NBA player and coach. He knows how to get people to the league. But, Bryce is pretty skinny, and I don't know where he's going to play right away in the NBA. I guess he'd be a guard and probably a point guard, but he's not really a point guard yet. He's a very skilled kid. He's got a nice all-around game. He can improve his three-point shooting. He's a great free throw shooter for a freshman. And I say that because when you're shooting under pressure in a league like the Big Ten, right away, there's a lot of pressure. And he's done very well at the foul line, which leads me to believe he could become a great three-point shooter. But you don't want to have to learn a skill like that and try to make an NBA rotation, to be a top 8 or 9 player on a team, unless it's the worst team in the NBA, and then you get beat up and you're going to be injured, or you're going to fight the injury bug until he gets stronger. And he looks like he has the kind of body where another year or two he's going to get up over 200 pounds, and then he can start, thinking about being a player in the NBA instead of being a spectator for 2 or 3 years. It would be well worth his money and his future, to really look hard at where he might be drafted this year. Being a first-round pick doesn't guarantee anything. If you're a lottery pick, that gives you an opportunity where they're going to keep calling your name to justify, the high pick that you become. So I hope I'm not confusing the issue, but that's the truth. And it's easy now in this day and age through your coach, and I used to do it with every player who was an NBA prospect. I would call up the Players Association head in New York City or call the NBA office. They'll put you in touch with the right people. You can talk to general managers around the league. Your coach can arrange it. There's no reason to make a mistake when you have talent like he does and go on, an agent's advice, because agents want to get a guy signed. They want to have a contract.
They want to get paid, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. They want their payday. So he's got to be smart, go through Fred Hoiberg, do the thing the right way, and he'll find out almost exactly where he's likely to be drafted and by whom. So that's what should happen with Bryce. But again, it's so tough today to judge a coach in these couple of years. I mean, the last 2 years have been a mess, and even this year, COVID hit a lot of teams, and I'm sure Nebraska experienced some earlier this year. Hopefully that's all behind us. But, to me, Fred gets a big mulligan. If I was the athletic director, I'd have even given him a couple of years because, when you're out there recruiting, if you only have 1 year left on your contract, good luck in recruiting. So, athletic director after this season and get that straightened out.
It's overtime here. The C2 final, shot of the buzzer short. 2 free throws missed. Grand Island, Central Catholic, and Lindsay Holy Family Humphrey tied as we are in extras right now. The A final coming up with Jeff Motz and John Harris on KFOR at 6. A timeout more with Tom Penders, Hall of Fame coach. His thoughts on Bryce McGowens and what's to loom here in the NCAA Tournament. Hail Varsity courtside at PBA, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Tom Penders back with us. Coach, that's awesome with your assistant and student manager, Coach Beard, with you at Texas. What did you see in him, and did you anticipate this success, not only what he did with Tech, but what he's done with Texas? I mean, I know you're smiling that he's the head man down there.
Well, yeah, I had a little bit to do with him being there, in that he was with me for, 5 years. He was a red shirt manager. We gave him a red shirt year because he was so great in the film room. He's somebody that, I recommend it to all these young coaches and coaching wannabes if they want to be a head coach someday as an assistant. The most important thing for a young guy coming up is to learn how to break down film, learn how to scout off videotape, and don't waste the head coach's time with too much tape, but be able to get, a 25 to 30-minute tape for your next opponent. And you learn how to do those things, and it's a lot shorter trip from an assistant to becoming a head coach. Too many assistants think it's all about recruiting. Well, recruiting is about your personality and being able to, open up a recruit and get them to talk and to anticipate meeting the head coach and coming to campus, those kind of things. And if you don't have the personality to do that as an assistant, you'll never make it as a head coach because, we start the year every year, Chris, and we probably have 120 kids that we're looking at, and maybe we only have 3 or 4 scholarships. And it's important to have a guy in the film room who can, look at recruits, look at the videotapes, particularly these last couple of years with COVID. If you don't know how to evaluate kids on tape and you can't go out and see them in person, I don't know how in the world you're ever going to get through 120 prospects and decide who's right for you, unless you have an assistant that's on the ball, that has a personality, and that's something that Chris Beard had. He had it as an 18-year-old freshman, and I saw that in him, but I see that in a lot of young guys. And, every coach has a tree when it's all said and done, and out at the Collegiate Hall of Fame in Kansas City, you press my button under the letter P, and my face will come up, and then you press another button within that, and you see my coaching tree, and Chris Beard is part of my coaching tree. If somebody played for you, went into coaching, or was on your staff, whether it be as a student or as a graduate assistant, and you look at the benches today, there are more assistant coaches than players on most teams. I never had more than 3 assistants, I believe, and my last year was 2010. Some coaches have as many as 13, 14 assistants today. So I don't know how in the world you keep the names straight for the head coaches. You probably need an assistant coach to keep the names straight.
Coach, going to wrap up, and we'll get you back on for the NCAA tournament. Just a thought from you on Coach K's final game. I know it didn't go the way Duke fans wanted, losing to Carolina at home. But what did you think of the tributes that poured in for Coach K, your dear friend, last weekend down in Durham?
Yeah, going back, but not too much, Mike and I played against each other when he was at West Point and I was at UConn. He was the point guard for West Point. I was the point guard and captain at UConn. And, we know each other going back then. We guarded each other so closely that he told me that he knew what kind of gum I was chewing by the end of the ball game. But Mike and I have maintained a friendship since then. And we even coached in the same conference back when he was at West Point. I was at Columbia and then Fordham. We formed the MAC, the MAAC, when it was a lot tougher conference with some great coaches, including Mike Krzyzewski, Pat Kennedy, who went to Florida State. But I have followed his career, only had to coach against him once, and that was in the NCAA where they beat us by a point. And I joke with people now, if you lose by a point to Duke, that means you won by 15 because you're not getting any calls. But Mike would take a bad team. He can take your team and beat you, or he can take his own team and beat you. Great coach, a better person, and a guy that I couldn't be happier for. And he doesn't need to win it all this year to go out the right way. He's already done it over and over and over. But his team, in my opinion, should be one of the top 5 teams when the picks come out next Sunday. They have a very dangerous team, a team that they get hot, they can win it all. And that's what the tournament's going to be about this year, that you can argue about number 1 or 2 or 3 seeds. You could throw anybody in the 1 seed. The thing is, you got to win when the games are right in front of you, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Mike Krzyzewski won it this year.
Tom Penders, Coach, we'll run you down next week, get your reaction to Selection Sunday, and we'll let the madness continue with some March. We're so happy to hear from you again, and glad you're doing okay, Coach, and thanks so much for the time today.
Always a pleasure, Chris.
Tom Penders, Hall of Fame coach, 5 teams to the dance. Jeff Motz courtside with me here at PBA Championship Friday. Little bonus coverage, overtime between Grand Island Central Catholic and Humphrey Lindsay Holy Family. Motz, it's a pretty good ball game, brother.
Yeah, we are in overtime now, tied at 42, and now Central Catholic getting into the front court, trying to go up here and maybe draw a foul. But obviously this whole state tournament, we've seen great basketball and under a different format. But I think if people have adapted to it, they've embraced it, and it's been a fun tournament to watch so far.
It's been a conglomeration with boys and girls the same week. And again, tip of the cap to our friend Jeff Mull for what him and his crew have done, and also PBA. You have Grand Island Central Catholic on offense right now. They're going to attack, pull up jumper, shot long, no good, and a rebound with 7. So a chance for the win here for Lindsay Holy Family, and a foul going to be whistled on Grand Island Central Catholic.
Yep, and
it's been an issue with free throws for both teams in overtime and splitting as time wound down. We got about a minute here before a break, and we'll get you set up. I mean, you've got the rosin ready, LeBron style, for the Class A title game.
Ceremonial toss up in the air.
Just off to the southeast corner of PBA is Lincoln Southwest, as they've been standing and watching with Coach Tim Berta as Southwest going for a second title. Motz, hang on. We'll come back. About 3.5 minutes. We'll get a preview for the title game tonight. Can stream us live, ESPN Lincoln's Facebook, and also ESPN Lincoln's Twitter. And, of course, the title game on KFOR tonight with Jeff Motz, KFORnow.com. John Harris providing color analysis. We'll wind down championship week here from PBA with Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
A thriller in the C2 final overtime. Humphrey Lindsay Holy family 43, Grand Island Central Catholic 42, a lob to the rim at the buzzer with 1.9 seconds remaining. Caught beautifully, executed perfectly, contested at the rim, Motz.
Yeah.
Just short.
A little more oomph underneath of that, and that probably would have gone in.
Just short for the win. It was a little bit deeper into the paint than the old Leitner lob, but it was well drawn up.
Yeah, it was. It was a good inbounds play. Got it, caught it, turned around on the left side of the rim and just short-armed the shot. Hit the side of the rim, ball game.
I was wondering what happened because it was funny for anyone watching the live stream to see your guys' facial reactions as that was going down. You guys are both sitting there, and I'm trying to figure out what's happening. I'm checking Twitter, what's going on?
Yes, no kidding, right? Caption this, right?
Yeah.
Motz, big ball game tonight. You have Southwest and Fremont, the A final for girls, Class A 2022 on KFOR, KFORnow.com. You and John Harris going to have that. Couple of thoughts on the matchup before they tip.
I think this will be a great game tonight. I know the previous two meetings, Fremont won. One of those being in the Heartland Conference tournament back in late December, and then they won the regular season game by a closer margin. But the way that Southwest has been playing in this state tournament, Chris, there's no question that they have picked up so much momentum. Fremont had some difficulty with Lincoln High early on Wednesday night in the semifinals, but found a way to win in the second half and took control. So you got a great player, and Taylor McCabe is going to go play at Iowa next year for Fremont, and you got a great
Gatorade Player of the Year.
Gatorade Player of the Year, and then you got a brilliant young sophomore in Kennedy Williams, who is such an impressive guard. She's got 2 more years ahead of her at Southwest. Very impressive has been that quarterback out there for the Silverhawks. And a great supporting cast there, too. Freddie Wallace, good presence on the inside. Alexa Goebel stepped out. Brindley Christensen, a great player, too. So I'm interested to see how this is all going to play out here in a matter of about 20, 25 minutes or so.
Southwest has been incredible defensively. Came out of the gate, beat Central a second time despite being undersized.
Yeah.
Coach Berta has had so many good specials in place, and then some counters off of some previous looks you might see on film. And Kennedy Williams has been just incredible. She's been phenomenal. And then for Southwest to come out defensively like they did and just kind of stone an incredible Millard South team is super impressive. Fremont is big, they're physical, they're fast, and you know what? It's hard to beat a team 3 times, and that is Fremont's task.
But if you do the same thing to Fremont that you did to Millard South, you got a good chance.
They could. Motz, have a great call.
Yeah, thank you.
On KFOR, KFORnow.com. Elijah Herbal, we will say hi to you tomorrow morning, good sir.
Can't wait.
With the weekend edition, go comb the mustache. In the green room, Jeff Motz, John Harris, waiting. Championship Friday over on sister station KFOR. Thanks for hanging with us all week long at PBA. And weekend edition of Hail Varsity tomorrow. More thoughts on the scrimmage, 7 to 9 a.m. Take care.